This is a real story, not fiction, for you to learn from it. Philip, a brilliant young medical graduate, faces rejection after rejection despite his first-class degree. Struggling to survive in Abuja, he loses his mother due to lack of money. Broken and hopeless, he turns to prayer, seeking God's help, and this happened to him. The empty medicine bottle fell from Philip's trembling hands, shattering against the concrete floor of their small room in Nyanya, a suburb of Abuja. The sound echoed like his breaking heart. "Mama, please don't leave me," he whispered, kneeling beside the old mattress where his mother lay, her breathing shallow and labored. Mrs. Adaora Okiki had been battling diabetes for 3 years, but without money for proper treatment, her condition had worsened. Philip, despite being a qualified doctor with a first-class degree from the University of Abuja, couldn't even afford her medication. The irony was crushing. He could save lives, but couldn't save his own mother's life. "My son," she whispered weakly, her voice barely audible above the noise from the busy Nyanya market outside their window. "Don't lose hope. God will remember us." Philip's eyes filled with tears. "Mama, I've tried everything. 5 years of job applications, 5 years of rejections from every hospital in Abuja. National Hospital, University of Abuja Teaching Hospital, Garki Hospital, Asokoro Hospital. They all said my qualifications were perfect. But then," he paused, his voice breaking. "But then, nothing. Always nothing." His mother reached out with her frail hand and touched his face. "There's something your father never told you before he died." Philip leaned closer. "What, Mama?" "Our family. There's been a pattern. Every generation, the first son struggles with poverty, no matter how educated or hardworking. Your grandfather was brilliant, but died poor. Your father was the same." She coughed weakly. "But son, there's power in prayer. Break what has been holding our family back." That night, Mrs. Adaora Okiki closed her eyes for the last time. Philip held her hand as she passed, feeling utterly alone in the world. 3 days after the funeral, Philip sat in the empty room, staring at the wall where his mother's hospital bed used to be. He had sold everything: their small TV, the old refrigerator, even her jewelry, just to pay for a simple burial at Gudu Cemetery. His phone buzzed. Another rejection email from Maitama General Hospital. He didn't even bother reading the full message. "God, where are you?" he cried out loud, his voice echoing in the empty space. "I've done everything right. I studied hard. I graduated with first class. I'm a good person. Why is this happening to me?" His neighbor, Mrs. Grace, knocked on his door. She was a kind woman who ran a small provision store in the market. "Philip, my son, have you eaten today?" she asked gently. He shook his head, embarrassed. Mrs. Grace had been helping him with food since his mother's death, but he knew she was struggling too. "Here," she said, handing him a plate of rice and stew. "And Philip, I heard you crying. My son, sometimes the breakthrough comes right after the darkest moment. Mrs. Grace, I'm a doctor, but I can't even get a job as a cleaner in any hospital. What kind of breakthrough can there be?" She sat down beside him on the floor. "Let me tell you something. My husband struggled for 15 years before his business succeeded. Sometimes there are spiritual battles we don't understand. Have you tried really talking to God about it?" Philip laughed bitterly. "I've prayed, Mrs. Grace. Trust me, I've prayed. No, my son, not just asking for things, really talking to him, seeking his face, fighting in prayer like your life depends on it." After she left, Philip found himself thinking about his mother's last words. A pattern in their family. Could there really be something more to his struggles? Philip decided to take Mrs. Grace's advice seriously. If God was real, if prayer really worked, then he would give it everything he had. He cleared a corner of his room, placed his mother's old Bible there, and made it his prayer place. Every morning at 5 a.m. and every evening at 6 p.m., he would kneel there and pour out his heart. God, I don't understand what's happening to my life, he prayed on the first day. But my mother said there's something affecting our family. If there are chains holding us back, please break them. By the second week, something began to shift inside him. Instead of just asking for a job, he started praying for understanding, for breakthrough, for whatever spiritual barriers might exist. Lord, if there are altars of poverty in my family, I reject them in Jesus' name, he would pray daily. I break every curse, every limitation, every pattern of struggle. His prayers became more intense, more focused. He would spend hours in that corner, sometimes crying, sometimes declaring victory over his circumstances. Mrs. Grace noticed the change. "Philip, you look different," she said one afternoon. "There's something in your eyes now." "I feel different, Mrs. Grace, like something is breaking inside me, something that's been there all my life." 1 month into his prayer journey, Philip had a strange dream. He saw his father and grandfather standing in chains, and a voice saying, "What has been bound in darkness will be loosed in light." He woke up with an unusual peace. For the first time in months, he felt hope. That morning, as he knelt in his prayer corner, he felt led to pray specifically, "God, I thank you for the breakthrough that's coming. I receive it by faith." It seemed foolish. He had only 200 naira left in his pocket, no job prospects, and hadn't eaten a proper meal in days. But somehow, he felt certain that change was coming. 2 months after starting his intensive prayers, Philip's phone rang at 7 a.m. on a Tuesday morning. The caller ID showed National Hospital Abuja. "Hello, is this Dr. Philip Okeke?" the voice asked. "Yes, this is Philip." "This is Dr. Amina from Human Resources at National Hospital. We have your application from 2 years ago, and we have an urgent opening in our emergency department. Can you start immediately?" Philip almost dropped the phone. Yes, but didn't you reject my application before, Dr. Okeke? I'm not sure what happened before, but your qualifications are exactly what we need. The salary is 350,000 naira monthly, with full benefits. Can you come in today for the final paperwork?" After hanging up, Philip sat in stunned silence. Then he knelt in his prayer corner and wept. But this time, they were tears of joy. The breakthrough didn't stop at one phone call. By Friday, Philip had received calls from 4 different hospitals: University of Abuja Teaching Hospital, Garki General Hospital, and even 2 private hospitals in Maitama. "Dr. Okeke, we've been trying to reach you," said the HR manager at University of Abuja Teaching Hospital. "We have a consultant position available. The pay is 500,000 naira monthly." Philip was overwhelmed. These were the same hospitals that had rejected him repeatedly for 5 years. He chose to work at National Hospital because they called first, but kept the consultant position at University of Abuja as a weekend opportunity. Philip stood in his new apartment in Wuse 2, looking out at the Abuja skyline. He had moved out of the small room in Nyanya and could finally afford a comfortable life. But the most amazing thing wasn't the money or the apartment. It was the change he felt inside. The heaviness that had followed him all his life was gone. Mrs. Grace visited him in his new place, her eyes wide with amazement. "Philip, "My son, look at God!" she exclaimed. "From nothing to this in just a few months. Mrs. Grace, you told me to really talk to God, and it changed everything. I believe there really was something holding our family back, and God broke it." She nodded knowingly. Sometimes the breakthrough comes suddenly after a season of persistent prayer. God was preparing you. Philip had saved enough money to start a small clinic in Nyanya, the same area where he had struggled. He named it Adaora Memorial Clinic, after his mother. On the opening day, he stood before the gathered crowd, mostly poor people from the community who couldn't afford expensive medical care. "This clinic will provide free medical services every Saturday," he announced, "because I know what it means to need help and not find it." Mrs. Grace was in the front row, tears streaming down her face. Later, as they sat in his office, Philip reflected on his journey. "You know, Mrs. Grace, I used to think God had forgotten about me, but now I see he was preparing me for something bigger. The struggle taught me compassion. The prayers taught me faith." "And your mother?" Mrs. Grace asked gently. Philip smiled, though his eyes were moist. "I believe she's watching. She told me to break what was holding our family back, and God did exactly that. The altars of poverty in our family line are destroyed." Philip's clinic had expanded to serve hundreds of patients. He had also gotten married to Dr. Sarah, a colleague from National Hospital who shared his passion for helping the poor. On the anniversary of his mother's death, he visited her grave at Gudu Cemetery with Sarah and Mrs. Grace. "Mama," he said, kneeling beside the simple headstone, "you told me God would remember us. He did. Not only did he give me a job, he gave me purpose. The poverty that plagued our family for generations is broken. When our children come, they will inherit blessing, not struggle." Sarah squeezed his hand. "Your mother would be proud." As they left the cemetery, Philip looked back at the Abuja skyline, thinking about how much had changed. From a struggling graduate in a tiny room to a successful doctor with multiple income streams, a beautiful wife, and a growing impact in his community. But more than the external changes, he knew the internal transformation was permanent. The chains of generational poverty had been broken through persistent prayer and faith. 5 years later, Dr. Philip Okeke owned 3 clinics across Abuja and was known throughout the FCT as the People's Doctor. His wife Sarah ran a charity organization providing free medical care to the poor. They had 2 children, a boy named Chinedu and a girl named Adora, after his mother. Every morning, Philip still knelt in his prayer corner, but now it was thanksgiving instead of desperate pleading. He had learned that some battles are won on our knees, and some victories come only through persistent faith. The altars of poverty that had dominated his family line for generations were destroyed forever. In their place stood altars of blessing, prosperity, and purpose. And in the quiet moments, Philip could almost hear his mother's voice. "My son, God remembered us." Indeed, he had. The moral lesson of the story is clear. Faith and persistent prayer can break generational cycles of poverty and struggle that seem impossible to overcome through human effort alone. When you refuse to give up and consistently seek God's intervention, He can unlock doors that have been closed for generations and transform your entire life trajectory. Don't forget to like this video, comment, and subscribe for more